back on the main track story, I think. Broom Closet.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
No, there's something. There's a broom.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything.
Don't judge
At
me.
least he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
Sweet FA. This dude is passive aggressive. I love it. What's up, nerds? I'm the Blue Titan, and welcome to the beginning of a new series that I have been very excited to start. So I'd like to go back in time here for a second to the year 2013. I was a college senior studying mathematics, and I didn't have a lot of free time because I was trying to graduate, but I was also, in my free time, spending a little bit too much time playing Halo, Lone Wolves and multiplayer. Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2 had just come out not too long before that, and I had just started the beginning of an addiction to a little-known game called League of Legends. Well, anyway, a good friend of mine recommended a game called the Stanley Parable to me. As I said, I was very busy at the time, so I tried to play the game. I didn't really know much about it, but it was one of those friends who, when they recommend a video game to you, you just play it. Because your taste in games lines up so well, you just trust them. And the friend told me, I can't tell you about this game, but you should play it. Somehow that was one of the more intriguing intros to a game or sales pitches I'd ever heard. So anyway, I didn't have a lot of time to play the game. I only played it for about 30 minutes because at the time my stepdad had gotten into an accident, or not long prior to that. And my mom was really busy and I had to help her out. And I was also studying for my own degree, so I had to kind of finish things up. So anyway, I had to shelf the game and never really got back to it. But that's good because now I get the chance to play the game because in 2022, they re-released the game. Or some kind of an ultra deluxe version of it, right? And I am really excited to play through this because I always wanted to, and now I get to do it. A blessing in disguise here, I get to do it in front of you guys, which is sweet. But anyways, what is the Stanley Parable? And that's a good question, honestly. But if I had to explain it to you, it kind of ruined the point. The Stanley Parable is a game that's best experienced knowing as little as possible. No trailers, no reviews, no summaries, for sure. You don't want to Google this game, because if you Google this game, you're going to ruin it for yourself. If you trust anything I've said, please don't Google the game for yourself. I know that some people, that's just going to trigger them to want to go do so, but do so at your own peril. I'm telling you right now, you will ruin it if you do that. But anyway, just if you want to play this game yourself, also just go press play. You don't have to watch this, whatever. I'm serious when I say that I recommend the game that much. It is an experience. But if you don't think you're going to play the game, you can just watch me. That's fine. Whatever you want to do, that's cool. But it is an experience, and you cannot look up any reviews. Trust me, please. What I can tell you, though, is this. It's not about shooting or crafting. It's not about skill trees. It's not about metagaming. Though there is a little bit of meta involved. And if you've played the game or you know what it is, that's kind of a good joke there. Unintentional, but the game doesn't ask you to win. It asks you to think. Kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure in a way. It's a good way to describe it, I think. No spoilers, right? But in this game, you're going to laugh. You're going to question things. You might even finish it and then start it again. Right? Like immediately afterwards. Because the game is honestly one of those rare games that you can't just play it. You have to experience it. And every time you play through this game, you're going to find something different. Or not. But here is the truth. The less that you know about the game, the better, right? So I'm going to stop and give it any introductions because anything else is probably going to be spoilers. Just watch the episode if you're interested. Or don't. You'll see what I mean. Anyway, let's get into this. You are playing the Stanley Parable, Ultra Deluxe. This sentence right here will, as we go through the game, you'll start to understand why this is kind of the feel and the vibe of the game. The game is a little self-aware. So here we go. Begin the game. Man, I'm excited. Oh man, I haven't played this game in such a long time. 30 minutes was not enough. Here we go.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
Stanley knows his lane. He sticks to his role.
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Oh, I think we're playing. Yep, looks like it.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
The meeting room. The meeting room. I don't really know. Okay. Can I interact with doors? Is this a meeting room? Okay, not meeting rooms. Okay, so I gotta find the meeting room he was talking about. There's a computer here. Oh, we can turn it off and on. That's interesting.
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in it. Stanley clicked on literally every single door in the office, because he doesn't pick up well on cues from his environment.
I'm getting roasted by the narrator. Okay. Okay. Is there some...
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Okay. Okay, I'll do what he says. A meeting room? No? Still just another random room. Oh man, I gotta get used to the mouse sensitivity. It's very fast. Oh, meeting room.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Okay. Targets. Push for funding for... Get Chris out of the broom closet. What? Whatever. I'm gonna continue on. I'm just gonna kind of follow the narrator and see what he says to broom closet. I'll play with that later. I'm not too worried about it right now.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Okay. Red room. Red room. Man, this is really nice. This doesn't look like it belongs here at all. This is really weird. His boss's office? Where's that at? Here?
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life.
Yeah, that is wild.
Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number. 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Okay. So am I supposed to type in 2845 or am I supposed to...
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
Okay. 2845. I don't... Am I supposed to type that? I don't...
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code.
Big brain
by
Stanley.
sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Oh, light. Oh, okay. Behind like a staircase or something. Okay. Oh man, the lighting on this is kind of impressive. This came out in 2013, man. Well, I guess this is the deluxe version, so maybe that was updated on that. Man, it's so dark. Down? Just a ladder? Or elevator, I mean to say. Okay. La 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 la. Where are we going? Loading screens. Man, you don't see those as much anymore nowadays.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Okay. Stanley woke up, man. It's like the Matrix, right? He woke up and he unplugged himself and he was just tired of being at the desk. I understand
Stanley
that.
walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Okay. Escape. Alright, okay. I'm gonna follow the narrator the first time. I don't really know, so I want to do it. Idea? Symbol? Or I guess a light bulb, but like...
The lights rose on an enormous room packed
wow.
with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Okay. Man. It's a big open room. Some more computers here. I hate Mondays. Okay, sure. Any of this interactive at all? Oh, okay.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
I made a joke a second ago about the Matrix. If you've watched the 3 movies, this kind of reminds me of The Architect, you know, like all the screens, some guy kind of sitting in the back and watching all of them. This is eerie as hell. Like, I work in an office. Can you imagine, like, just sitting in an office and you got some manager that's just watching every single employee like this guy? This is so dystopian. Ugh. Okay. More boxes. I'm curious. I'm trying to interact with it. I guess it doesn't do anything. That's fine. All right. What does this
This
mean?
mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
Narrator is so cool. You're really into it.
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life.
Yeah.
For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Yeah. Wake people up. They don't have to be stuck in there. The controls, though, where are those at? System power off. Oh, you can turn it on and shut it off. I'm gonna shut it off. But he said, like, you know, he said off shuts it off, right? Shut off the power. Wake everybody up. I don't see anybody. I don't know what he means.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes! He had won! He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
See, and even this is a choice, right? Like, I don't have to listen to him, I guess.
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Oh! Beat the game and get your first achievement. Complete the Stanley Parable and get the achievement. Okay, cool. That was cool. Oh. Back in the office. So really quickly, I want to take a second here. Can I pause it? Yeah, I guess I can. The game is now paused. It's self-aware. So I just want to take a second to kind of like talk about the game and what I'm experiencing. I now remember, like, there's a narrator, right, that kind of talks to you as you play throughout the game and kind of tells you, kind of like advances the story, but I'm not really sure exactly how much control you have over what you do. That's kind of the fun of it, right? I think I'm supposed to kind of deviate sometimes. I don't know. It's like a choose your own adventure. Like, there's an old school, like way back in the day, like the 90s and before then, there used to be these like command prompt like games that people would just go in and they would just type in like an entry, you know, red, blue, yellow, and then hit enter, and then it would change like what you're doing, right? Like maybe you were given a choice. Would you like to go through the right door, the left door, or the center door? And then you type in the word center and you hit enter, and then it takes you there. And it's like a text-based adventure, and that's kind of what this is like from what I remember, except it's like a lot more animated and a lot more like modern and polished with, like, you know, everything's visual, right? But just a quick thing. I mean, so like I like the narrator. I think it's like, you know, it's fun. It's funny to, you know, they chose a British guy for it. I thought about that. You know, it's for some odd reason, it seems like a lot of games like this, anytime there's like a very intelligent person, kind of a Watson kind of character or whatever, there's always like a British person. It's funny. But one of the things I wanted to say was, I made that comment about the Matrix, and I don't want to, you know, spend 15 minutes talking about this, but I do want to say really quickly that the game does really remind me of kind of like the Matrix, or like, you know, more what the Matrix is referring to, which is kind of the what they call the Plato's allegory of the cave. And if you've never heard Plato's allegory of the cave, like the quick explanation is, would you rather live a life of convenient or of like blissful ignorance, where you're happy but you don't know the full truth, or you don't accept the full truth, or would you rather perhaps live in pain knowing the full truth? And that, in essence, is kind of the idea of the blue pill versus the red pill, which is a manifestation of the idea that was written in Plato's original, like, you know, allegory of the cave. So the original allegory of the cave was something along the lines of, if you spent your life, grew up chained to a wall, and somebody created essentially like, you know, hand puppet gestures above you, cast by a fire projected on the wall, and the only real life experiences you ever experienced were the cast puppets on the wall and the voices of those people casting those puppets, that would become your reality. It would be the only thing that you knew that was real. And upon such a time as you hit a certain age, maybe 18 years old or something, if those captors, if those people that were holding you hostage or whatever, prisoner, released you and allowed you to go up to the surface out of this cave, allegory of the cave, right? And you saw the sun for the first time. The question that Plato originally posed his followers or whatever, he philosophized, was, if you were given the choice between seeing the sun for the first time with this very, harsh light, and you got to see that the fire essentially was the same thing as the sun, but the sun was a bigger, brighter version of the same thing, and you kind of like walk out of the cave and you're kind of exposed to this whole new reality, and you see real people and you're having real conversations with the people, you're going to be overwhelmed. But the question is, the average person, and this is what Plato philosophized, right? Would the average person be more likely to accept this new hellish reality, at least initially, the hellish, because they would just be like, what is going on? It's so overwhelming. There's too much going on. They'd be scared, right? If that was your whole life, up to that point, you would be scared to death walking out there, seeing the sun, seeing real people, because everything you knew was puppets and cast on a wall up to that point. Would you accept that new reality? Or would you intentionally choose to go back down into the cave and willingly put your shackles back on in order to experience the blissful ignorance that you already knew? And I know that, some of you, that might be an immediate response of course I wouldn't reshackle myself, but would you? I mean, that's the same question that's brought up in Simulacrum, which is a book that's also cleverly placed on one of the shelves in Neo's room in The Matrix. And that's kind of the reference material partially for the Matrix as well. The Matrix is a conglomerate of like multiple different, it's a combination hodgepodge of multiple different philosophies, but, and there's some religious tones inside of it as well. There's a lot of that. People focus on different parts, based on what their interests are, but the Matrix has the same kind of posed question, right? Would you jack yourself into the Matrix intentionally to forget, kind of like there's a character in that named Cypher. He's kind of the bald guy who has the meeting. If you've ever seen The Matrix, he's the bald guy that has the meeting with Agent Smith, and he is eating the steak, and he talks about how the steak is not real, but he's okay with that because after years of being in the Matrix, or being out of the Matrix and being in in the know, having taken the red pill and willingly stepped out of the cave to see the light and experience the real life. After years of being outside of the cave, he decided to intentionally go back into the cave because he, in his own words, felt that ignorance was bliss. And in the movie, of course, he's cast as a coward, and it is very cowardly, but it is an also understandable decision. You can't fault him for, unless I guess you could fault him for being a coward, but you can't fault his brain, as Morpheus says in the movie. Once a brain has been hit a certain age, you don't want to release them because they reject things. It's no different than older folks, right? An older person doesn't want to start using email if they didn't grow up with email. An older person doesn't want to start using credit cards if they've never used credit cards their entire life. They don't want to adopt a new thing because it's like the old dog new tricks thing, right? People don't want to start new things. They don't like it. I'm already experiencing that. I'm in my 30s, and sometimes I'm like, oh man, why do they have to change the way that this works, right? And this one thing I like. People don't like new things a lot. I mean, it's just kind of the way things work. But anyway, talking about the philosophy of that, back to Stanley Parable, right? Bringing us full circle here. The Stanley Parable's got that same feel, right? In every single situation, you're given the blue pill and the red pill. I mean, there were multiple times where the guy said something and waited for me to do the thing. He said, down to the very beginning, right? He said, do you want to leave the room? Well, didn't say it, but he's like, Stanley got up and left his desk. And I did it. I followed him. I ate the blue pill. And that was kind of to show what the game was supposed to be. And the blue pill really is what's going on, because I followed everything that he said down to the letter. I stayed in the Matrix and I followed the rules. I stayed in the cave and I watched the fire puppets. And then at the very end, I was released into this perfect paradise, or so I'm supposed to believe. Now, but the idea is, as he says, he's like, oh yeah, this is fine. All these unfinished mysteries that I haven't done. That's okay, because I'm blissfully ignorant. I escaped the Matrix, or intentionally stayed in it, depending on your interpretation. But now I'm interested in playing through. We'll get back to the gameplay. Now I'm interested in seeing what happens if I deviate from the story a little bit. And we'll do it at different times. I'm not going to do it immediately, but we'll just kind of go through and just see what we feel like, right? I'm not going to think much about it. I'm just going to kind of do funny things and see where we go. But that is the point of this game, right? It's just kind of a choose your own adventure. So we're going to resume the game now. I know I talked for a little while, so I'm sorry if you had to sit through that and you weren't really a fan of that. That's who I am, man. That's who I am. So if you're here for that, you're here for that. So continuing on. The game is now paused. Resume the game. All right, so I'm back in my room. I don't really explain why, but I'm here. Can I interact with things? I can, but like nothing actually interacts. It makes a sound. Oh, I can press the keys. Nothing's happening.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
All right.
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
See, that's new. Like, he didn't say that last time. And that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, this is going to be interesting. I couldn't go into any of these doors before, right?
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference.
I can interact with those computers.
Did it advance the story in any way?
Awaiting input, what? Okay. I press the computer.
Stanley clicked on literally every single door in the office because he doesn't pick up well on cues from his environment.
Okay, here.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
See, now I'm going to deviate from the story. Because that's to kind of emphasize this more than anything is the literal manifestation of the red and blue pill, right? Do you follow the blue pill and go into blissful ignorance? Or do you follow the red pill? Let's see.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Okay. Oh, all right.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in. Yes, really, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really worth it.
He's so passive-aggressive.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Okay. I'll follow him, I guess, this time.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
Oh, so this gets us back into the... Oh, the meeting room. Okay, so this is pulling us back into the main, like, tree
Yet
line.
there was not a single person
Maybe.
here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
He said that last time. So now we're back on the main track story, I think. Broom Closet. Let's go in here this time.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
No, there's something. There's a broom.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
Okay.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything.
Don't judge me.
At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
Sweet FA.
Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused. You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it.
You did. Maybe kind of. It says broom closet right on it. I mean, it's kind of.
Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path. Maybe when you go talk about this with your friend, you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning. Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
That's just okay. This dude is passive aggressive. I love it.
Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. They have fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
Nope. I am gonna stay. As I like my broom closet. I've got a broom, and I've got proper lighting. It's all a guy needs. It's some duct tape too. I can even close. Anybody who comes in here, I can stop them. And hit them with this wrench. I'm not going anywhere. He's not talking. I wonder if I really am supposed to leave here. Weird that I can't jump. Like, usually you hit the spacebar in games like this. You can't jump. No, seriously, we disabled it. I was hitting the spacebar, and I just got an achievement that said you can't jump. Seriously, we disabled it because I kept trying to hit the spacebar. That's funny. They disabled jump. That's so... And they knew what I would do it. That's what I'm talking about. This game is clever. Like, the designers of this game really understood, like, at the time, a lot of the tropes and the things that people did in games. That's so funny. But I can't interact with any of this. Nothing on the shelves. Like he said, I can't interact with any of this. Did I open the door? What if I close it? Does he complain? Doesn't look like he's going to complain about me, like, opening the door and closing it. I wonder if I step out.
Ah, Second player, it's good to have you on board. I guarantee you can't do any worse than the person who came before you.
Right, because the narrative was like, I died, and then he's saying that there's got to be somebody else to pick up the game. Second player goes right back in.
You too? Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to. A fish? Fungus? Look, you can hammer out the details. I'm not particularly picky. I'll just be waiting for when you're ready to pick up the story again.
Man, this is so funny. Player 2 likes the broom closet, man. Sometimes you just gotta hang out, right? Like, this is a nice little spot. I don't know what to do with this black hose, though. I don't think there's anything else here. It's my guess, because he didn't say anything when I left or anything this time. Can't interact with the light. We're gonna leave, I think. I think that's enough. I think we're gonna go.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Go down. Why not? Well, that's so bright. It almost seems like one of those, you know, like in a lot of games, like a secret thing or a note of some kind. Fire hose.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating?
What?
No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago?
Yeah, dude.
How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Ugh. Oh, wake up.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
So that was us, laying on the ground like we were a raving madman, I guess, and passed out on the floor. The end is never the end is never the end is never the end. That's the loading screen side. Did you see that? And then it starts us again. See that? So like there's a choose your own adventure. There's like multiple different endings, I guess, and you keep coming back here. It's kind of funny. Already kind of checked everything in the room, right? I think oh, the door. Oops. It's locked.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go any way except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer. Here it comes.
So that was an ending. I chose to just stay in the room. Was it really locked? Like I couldn't...
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure.
Okay.
What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for
so
that.
This looks like it might be one of the only
This
endings.
couldn't go any way except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself,
so this is one ending.
Wait.
I can't really do
Nothing
anything once I'm on these rails.
Nothing
It looks
will
like
break me.
I don't think I can
In here I can be
interact
happy
with anything.
forever. I will be happy.
Yeah.
Stanley waited. Hours passed.
Looks like this is
then
one of
days.
those like
Had years
you make this
gone
decision
by?
and then you're on
He
rails
no
for the
longer
rest
had
of
the
it.
ability to tell.
That's cool.
But the one thing
It
he
wasn't
knew
a funny
for
ending.
sure,
I didn't actually
beyond
remember.
any
I
doubt,
never saw
was that
this.
if
So,
he waited long
like,
enough,
there
the
were, like I said, I saw like
answers would
one
come.
ending, or two endings, I
Eventually,
think,
someday,
when I played through the
they
first time. But
would
I've spent
arrive.
so many years now
Soon,
that I honestly don't
very
remember
soon
them.
now,
I did
this will
remember like the
end.
pretty
He will
ending
be
because the first time I
spoken
played through, I
to.
followed
He
what
will
he
be
said the first time
told
too,
what
just to
to
kind of,
do.
you know,
Now it's
follow through,
just
because
a
that's what the
little
game
bit
wanted you to do. It's
closer.
like whenever you play a video game like,
Now it's even closer.
I don't know, like Skyrim or something. I
Here it
remember the first time
comes.
I ever played Skyrim, I just followed what the game's box looked like. I wanted to play a character that was a Nord guy with a helmet and a sword, right? I just kind of did what the game said. So that's why first time I ever played this game through, I played straight through, and I did it here as well with you guys. Just played it straight through, just as the game was intended to be played the first time, just to kind of get a vanilla experience, and then after that I deviate. So anyway, I'm not going to do that one again. We're going to go head out here and see what's going on. Is the phone ringing?
Hello. This is a recorded message scheduled either by you or a person in your place of work. The purpose of this message is to warn you about the dangers of recorded messages. If at any time you believe you are listening to a recorded message, please terminate it immediately and cease all flow of information from the recorded message into your perceptual sphere. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.
So anytime I hear a recorded message to show, should I have ended that one? Or am I supposed to end them moving forward? I don't really... And this is so weird. Like, you can... It's very strange that I can't jump. Very odd. Can't like interact with. No. Closed when I go through. Oh, the door's open again. That door is open again. It's been closed every time. Remember? We couldn't go in there. Why is that door open? The first few times we played this, I walked out, tried to open the door, and I couldn't go back into it. Hold on.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure.
Okay,
What
never
if he
mind.
had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility?
So if you want to skip
He had
through this
never been
part, that's
trained
okay.
for
Like
that.
get to the next part of the video, that's okay. I get it.
This couldn't go any way except badly. The thing to do
Yeah,
now,
this is really
Stanley
interesting.
thought
Like
to
the
himself,
recorded
is to
video or the
wait.
recorded voice
Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break
was
me.
unique. Like
And
that has
here I
we've
can
never
be
seen that
happy
before. Like we've had
forever.
the situation before
I
where
will
we
be
walked over to
happy.
those desks and then
Stanley
he talked
waited.
about how
Hours
my employee
passed,
friends
then
weren't there.
days.
We didn't hear
Had
that the
years
first
gone
time
by?
because we didn't
He
walk
no
over to
longer
those
had the
desks the
ability
first
to
time.
tell.
The second time
But the one
we
thing he
walked over
knew
there, we
for
heard him
sure,
say it.
beyond
But this
any
time
doubt,
we never heard
was
a
that
phone
if he
ring.
waited long enough,
That's
the
totally
answers
unique.
would come. Eventually, someday.
So it makes me
they
wonder if
would
like every
arrive.
single time you play through, there's a
Soon,
different thing that
very
can just
soon
random
now,
events can happen
this
too.
will
I guess that
end.
there are like
He will be
infinite
spoken
options for
to.
things to get out of the
He
game
will
by
be
doing that.
told what to do. Now it's just a
So
little bit closer.
this game's gonna end, and then we're gonna continue on
Now
here.
it's
So
even closer. Here it comes.
it's fun. It's like trying to mine all the different endings. It's kind of fun. The end is never the end. Is never the end. What the hell?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
Well, welcome to the whiteboard ending. Dog mode. What the hell? Just make everything we touch like bark. Oh, that's annoying. I'm shutting that off. I don't want to hear that the whole time. Whiteboard ending. That's funny. It's not really an ending. It's just more of like a joke. That's funny. The whiteboard ending. All right. Oh,
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Sure. Keep an eye out for different things we can do here, right? Oh, this is the one that goes across the way, right? Like this goes back across, like there's an elevator in there, like that's the sneaky route that took us back on track, remember?
Yet there was not a single person here either.
I haven't done anything in this
Feeling
room.
a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Is there anything in this room? I've really not given any attention to this room. What do people want? Things? Happy feelings? Violet James, you are fired. Oh, making fun of corporate culture? Yeah, like how dare you say that people want to feel happy? They want things, they want money, they want more money. Things, but with money to buy more things. Graphs about things and money. We have our new product. Yeah. Facts. The stock market is somewhere here. Colored in segment. Stripes. Requires more secondary research. What is hot? Target demographics. Teenagers. Profits. One of them says profits as in like a believer or like a religious believer. Profits is spelled. That's funny. Question mark. Bi-quarterly post-it or post review. We need more/less reviews. We need less reviews. 402 plus 405 want to get rid of the death sport portion in primary review schedule. But I think that's a stupid idea. More water coolers, more water cooler heaters. What? More charts need to be more hip to appear to teenage demographic, right? Find teenagers to put in teenage demographic. Big net, some sort of child trap. Teenagers, size of demographic, a lot of percent. Space between the teenagers. Throw something in the ideas bin. 10, no more, what does that say? 10, 20, 30? 10, no more bins, trash cans. Renaming of the ideas bin. Firing of me, ideas bin. What? I want to read the other ones. They're funny. Do not alter without consulting whiteboard manager. Meeting room. Monday through Friday. Weekly target address. Okay. Group question marks. Cabal planning? Rip friends. Okay. I wonder if that's like actually like a call out to somebody who is a friend of the designer of the game. If it's that meta, like meta, or if it's just like some random character that's works in the place. I don't know. But I don't think any of the people in the actual game have names though, right? I mean, they're just employee numbers. Office party. Pre-review of weekend review or week review. Ideas plus development. What do I do about 432? Don't tell 432 about the meeting. Who's 432? All right. Targets. Push for funding for R&D of new coffee machine. Standard graphs for O's X wide. Get Chris out of the broom closet. Okay. Ongoing. Not cost efficient. Standard. Okay. Synergize papers. Hire someone to synergize papers. Papers are too synergized. Fire paper guy. Hire someone to fire the paper synergizing guy. Who moved my desk? Please keep the targets on the topic of... Okay. The teacher was yesterday, tomorrow is now. Tomorrow, complete today's unfinished agenda items. Write next day's agenda. Reflect. Employee 407... 405, 491, 416, 431, and Jim. Okay, got just Jim. Old Jim. TPS reports. That's funny. So TPS reports obviously are a real thing, but when I think of TPS reports, I think of like one of the most, iconic movies that references TPS reports. Talks about office culture called The Office. That was like a cult classic movie, kind of like out cold in the early 2000s. So if you grew up like I did, like 11, 12 years old in 2001, watching Comedy Central super late at night, you'd know Out Cold and The Office and a lot of those like straight to B movies that were always playing really late at night that you can watch in The Office got a lot of love and attention because of that. That's why it got super big, is because it was played a lot. I don't even know if that movie made it to theaters. It probably was in theaters, but like nobody watched it there. It went straight to B movie, but it got its second life there, and that's where everybody watched it. And in that movie, that he complains, his boss, the guy works in an office, and he's complaining constantly about working in an office, and the whole movie's basically a critique of office culture. And TPS reports are a big theme in that. Oh, so like a lot of the doors seem to lock as you walk through them. So.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
It's kind of weird to hear his voice again after such a quiet time when we spent all that time reading. Back in the boss's office. What's down here? Executive bathroom. Oh, really nice. Because the boss knows that what the boss says goes. If the boss suffered losses, then that's what the boss chose. So, see, the color of this is so off. Makes me think of old school Scooby-Doo cartoons, right? Like the color scheme is so off, it makes me think I should be able to interact with this, but I don't seem to be able to. Is there something up with the wall there? Is that like a glare, or is that like a hidden area? I can't. There's literally just a bathroom with no interactive. Extreme bathrooms. What does that say? Bath guy testifies to the trial of the century. Tired of getting ash on your porcelain? Faucets, pipes, offshoots. All right. I don't like there's anything special in there going on. I can go back out here again, which is funny. Wait, so this closed behind me. Can I go back in? Okay, I can, but nothing in there. All right. Weird not being able to jump. Ah! All right, what's in here? Indoors monthly. That's funny. Okay. I guess we're going up. All right. So simple. It's Stanley. Man, this is a long elevator ride. Oh, okay. That didn't take me anywhere. What the heck? We'll wait for another 30 seconds or so, see if there's anything going on here. Because he just said all that last time in the song. I think that's it. I don't know if I tried to go up. We're gonna try this one, but I think I tried to go down last time, and then I might have clicked it again, and I actually just clicked both of the keys, so I don't know which one of them I clicked last time, so they'll forgive me if I'm kind of going over stuff all over again here for no reason, but I don't know. I feel like I didn't check going up. Nah, I feel like this is the same thing. Let's get out of here. Yeah. That'd really mess me up if there was something going on inside of that. Like, after this third time being on there, this game seems like the kind of game that would do that. What does that say? I am the most Expensive boss. Okay.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation.
He didn't say this
But
last
his
time.
attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk.
Or what?
What could its purpose
Maybe he
be?
did.
In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845. "2845. Forgot, but it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself.
Was
And
there,
Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo.
He started to say something else. It sounded like he got cut off. He was like, for God's... And then he started to say something else. I wonder if there's another thing he could do there. Might have to come back here at some point. Can I, like, leave here? No, I can't. I'm... Huh. It's so dark over here, my gosh. Alright. Yeah, I didn't even think about trying to hit the up button. It wasn't lit up.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Escape. Let's go. Let's see where this takes us. Let's go.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. But of course, Stanley thought better of it and realized he simply had too much to live for. Nope, still on board with death.
Dude, the designers of this game are so wild. That's so funny. Like
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Stanley's obstinate. Stanley
At
gonna
this
do what he's
point,
gonna do.
Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Red. Obvious death sign. The end is never the end is never the... Oh, is that the end of it? Oh, it's not, though. We're loading something. The fuck is...
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life.
Oh no!
Farewell, Stanley.
No, let me out! Let me... No! No!
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Our narrator disappeared.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
It's a narrator narrating the narrator. What? Oh, something's appearing. What is that? Okay, well, I can't see anything else, so I guess I'm locked into going straight. Can I walk over here? Doesn't seem like there's anything in the room. The big square room. Wow.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
What is this? White room? Nature paintings. Okay. Yeah, I saw a few of these in the office. We saw some of these just floating around. This is what I think it is. Stanley's computer. Yo, this is creepy. This is the starting room. This is my room. This is my work office, and then that's the door we walk out every time, and those are the desks that we fought, or we played around with. We answered the phone on that desk right there. We walked through, we went into this room. This is the room where he always makes fun of us for touching every single key and not picking up on social cues. And that computer right there is the one that we pressed, and it said input recorded or something, and that one right there had a screen that was on, and one of these had the screen on as well, and we shut them off. Then we walk through this hall, we walk down here, we walk into the choice, the final room. How befitting, right? The final room that's in this model is the red or blue pill where you got to choose to go through. That's the first obvious sign to the player that there's a choice to be made is this room. When in actuality, many times prior to this moment, there are many choices to be made. It's just not as obvious as this one. It's kind of like a very philosophical, existential, idea that's kind of the same thing in real life, right? There are a lot of choices that I made along the way that I didn't deem as choices, like opening and closing this door and just staying in my room, walking through here and wandering around and touching inputs and doing things. There were already choices being made before I even got to this room. We reset the game multiple times and then had a different opening room one time. There's multiple endings already before you even get to your first choice. So there's the obvious first choice. It's like choice number 1, and there's choice number 0.1 and 0.2. There's quite a few choices before the obvious choice. But this is the first real fork in the road that is obvious to us. The 2 doors. The set of the 2 open doors was the very first concrete piece of the Stanley Parable's design. Everything I just said, that's wild. That's so cool and meta, and it's teaching you about game design in a way, and also talking about, man, I could talk about this for hours. This is so clever. Once this room was created, the rest of the game emerged as an extension of it. An exploration of the contradiction this room posed. The contradiction of choice, right? Because if he goes to the left, it's not his choice, but if he goes to the right, it was intentionally because he was trying to lash out against the fact that he didn't seem to have a choice, which itself is the only choice, right? This is kind of when I talked earlier about the Matrix, and I'm not going to spend a bunch of time talking about this, but there's a part in the Matrix 2 and 3, right, where like, which is really, there's the Matrix, which is a standalone movie, and then there's 2 and 3, which are kind of added on, and they're nowhere near as good as the first Matrix movie, but there's some solid, interesting stuff going on there. Those are like slow burn movies compared to like the first movie. There's action scenes, but there's some slow burn stuff. Like, a lot of people make fun of the scene with the architect, and in a lot of ways, it was my favorite scene. Well, not my favorite, but one of my favorite scenes, where he goes to talk to the architect and sits in the quiet white room, the architect with all of his televisions, like I was talking about earlier. And Neo is given a choice between going back into the Matrix and fighting Agent Smith, or leaving and restarting Zion. Yeah, that's a lot for a person that's never watched those movies, but this is the same thing, right? The problem is choice. And that's what he says in the movie, right? The problem is choice. If he goes back into the Matrix willingly, goes the blue pill, right? Goes into the left side, the game resets. He lives in blissful ignorance, whatever, however you want to interpret that. If he goes to the right, that he intentionally is trying to like go back in or leave. I said that backwards. If he leaves and he resets the Matrix, that's kind of the blue pill, I guess. And then the red pill is more like going back into the Matrix. No, I guess it really depends on the interpretation. But anyways, it doesn't really matter. But this is still really cool. Filing cabinets, yeah, I'm pretty straightforward in that one. The corridor. Pacing of this opening section was important to get right. This corridor has been moved and altered to make sure the player reaches 2 doors in a good time. Yeah, talking about the game design, because we've already run into that a few times, right? There's no way to really anticipate player behavior outside of like the early plays. You can do some things, you can kind of force them kind of back on rails a little bit, but how many people have played this game, and how many different people had different ways of approaching the game? Some people might have walked up the hall, stopped, turned around, and walked right back down the hall. And so if the narrator's talking, you got to make sure that the points where the narrator talks makes sense for where the character is. We saw that earlier because I was down in the basement and I was walking through that infinite corridor with the different, like the car, the garage, and like I was floating and I saw the starry night and all that other stuff. He started talking about the room repeating, and I was like, what does he mean the room's repeating? I was like, does he mean like when I restart the game? And then I started walking through just out of curiosity, and I started to notice that the room and the rooms I was walking through were repeating. But I hadn't actually seen that yet. But the pacing of the game, the designer of the game thought that the average player probably would have just been bored sitting there in a parking garage and walking through, instead of doing what I was doing, which is just kind of sitting there and listening to him talk. So it's little choices like that kind of make a game, any game you make, like you have to think a lot. So, office layout. This blueprint shows the office from the beginning of the game. The path from Stanley's office to the 2 doors was just the first part of the game that was built. The path from Stanley's office to the 2 doors was the first part of the game that was built. Yeah, the first choice. Sections have been added and altered throughout development, though the core layout remains almost identical to the first iteration. This is cool too, because it's like a monument to their game design. It teaches you how the game, and this is so personal. It gives you an insight into the game's designers. So I think this was my desk, Stanley's original desk, although the first iteration might be different because, no, maybe not his original desk, because my computer's right there. But I was thinking about these 3 being different colors too on my desk back when we get back. I'm pretty sure they're like red, green, and blue or something. The office. Yeah. Oh, and you can't interact with them either. You notice there's no sound? This truly is just a museum. Button sign. Right. Oh, I can click these. Button sounds. Selection of the sounds used throughout the game with buttons are pressed. Each sound is a mix of keyboard strokes and synthesized tone. Yeah, I have heard this one. I do know that sound. I think that's the sound from shutting off computer monitors. Office computers, yeah. I wish I'd read that actually, but that's okay. Credits, that's cool. The people who actually helped build the game or whatever. Model design, original art or art book, original music. There's music in this game? Oh, I guess there was at the very end whenever we walked out. Sound design, additional music, additional voice work. Written and directed by. This is cool. What an interesting way to like immortalize the people that, because nobody really watches game credits. Who cares? This is a cool way of doing it, like including it in the actual game. Oh, now I have to make a choice. I have to make a choice. The office itself. Okay, there's a whole set of stairs up there. I'm actually going to run over here first and see if there's a big choice to be made in here too, or if it's just a blank and empty room. I want to see that. So, I mean, who knows if we'll come back here. Oh, another set of stairs. Office clock, yep. The boss's office. Oh, the different stages of like building that from a design perspective. Yeah, this is like the polygons and the rough sketch. Is this like a rough sketch what the world looks like? Maybe this might even be in the game design engine. The lounge, mind control facility, an early version of the underground portion of the game. Swing.
Stanley stood on the roof.
Stanley stood on the roof. Narration outtakes.
Stanley pushed the big red button.
Kevin Brighting, the voice of the narrator, recorded dialogue
Stanley pushed the big red button.
Dialogue for the entire game roughly 3 separate times over the course of 2 years of development. These are clips from early takes that were not used in the final game.
Stanley pushed the orange lever.
What a cool thing. This is so neat. Literally a museum about the game's development. Freedom ending. This was the first incarnation of the freedom ending in the game's alpha. Countdown Dusk, one of the early versions of the countdown ending. Oh, this is kind of like telling us all the different endings. I might ignore this just because of the sake of like, I don't want to have the game spoiled too much. So maybe we stop. We know what this is, right? We get the general gist of this. This is kind of like a, this might be a thing that you want to see later in the game's design. So we'll come back here another day.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
So I assume she's talking about me and the narrator. I guess those are the only 2 people that are in the game. There's that girl, but that's not an important character. The Stanley Parable on and off.
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these 2. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
Did I really have a choice there? I could have hit escape. End is never the end is never the end. It's another hallway. It's another different one. Okay. No, that's gonna have to be a good place to stop. I have to. I've been playing for a bit because I gotta work tomorrow, but that's it, guys. That's the Stanley Parable, right? Like, that's what this game is. It's just a bunch of narrated, weird, strange interweaving. I don't know. Like, what did you think? Like, this is my first real exposure to the game. Like I said, I played through 30 minutes of it the first time. Like, I remember the narrator being kind of weird and kind of funny, and I remember walking through the game and kind of like touching things and him kind of picking on me. Those are the things I really remembered about the game. That and like kind of the first like happy ending or whatever. I don't remember all that other stuff. This is really cool. So I'm really excited. This is gonna be fun, like playing through this. I don't know how long this game is. How I guess like this game's not gonna be a traditional game in the sense that it's gonna be one really long story. It's gonna be like a lot of distinct endings, and I'm just gonna be kind of like trying to farm all the different endings and trying to unlock all the different ones. But I don't know how you keep track of that. I wouldn't put it past this game to have some section of the game where like you walk through an area and then it tells you how many of the endings you've unlocked and which ones you still have to unlock. That seems like a pretty meta, funny thing you could do. But yeah, that's it. That's going to do it for tonight. I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to save the game here. I'm going to quit the game. I don't even know if you can save the game. Begin the game again? Resume the game? I wonder if this is a choice too. Man, this is going to be cool. Okay, I'm going to quit to the main menu. End is never, the end is never. Okay. And now, without spoiling anything, I want to say something really quickly. I actually turned this game on 2 weeks ago, and I didn't play. I didn't have time. And it asked me what time it was. It asked me, like, what language I wanted to use, and it asked me to change the brightness of the computer. That was some little icon so I could kind of control it. You know, pretty standard procedure for a lot of games. And it asked me, like, just a litany of random questions to make sure the game was set up properly. And then I didn't have time to play. I got to the screen, and I was like, oh, I don't have time today. So I just shut it off. I'll come back later. And today, which is the day I was actually going to get the chance to record my first video for this, I turned the game back on, and it started up, and it asked me what time it was. And I was like, oh, it's re-asking that stuff. I guess I'll go through this. It's not a big deal, but I got to go back through this. And I told it the time, and then it skipped, and I was like, whoa. It went to the main menu. It's going on, but it's not asking me the other information it asked last time. That's peculiar. But I didn't think much about it until all of a sudden the screen went black, and then it said, thank you for playing, something along the lines of, can I just take a second to to thank you? The game said this to me. It was like, can I just take a second to thank you? It's like, what? It said, this is the second time you've turned on the game. And the second time you've taken the time to actually tell me the correct time instead of skipping the screen like most the other players do. Like, a lot of players do that, right? Like, I remember back in the day, people log on their Xbox and it would always say the time was always way off, or whatever, PlayStation 2 or whatever. People just, nobody paid attention to that, so this game was kind of making fun of that. But it knew that I was paying attention to the time, or that it made that as I was making a choice, and you guys didn't even see that, right? But I was making a choice before I made a choice. Before the room with the blue and red pill, before the 2 hallways, before waking up or closing my eyes, before going out of the cave or staying in the cave. And the fact that it was already giving me a choice beforehand, it just put a big dumb grin on my face from the very start. I was like, I remember this game. The cleverness, like the fact that the designers of the games really thought about, like, a player experience, what the core game loop is of a game, turning it on, playing it for a while, shutting it off, turning it back on, firing through the same screens. We don't even see the loading screens, or we don't even see the startup screen. So many times when we start a game, we just skip, click, 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 skip through all the logos, all that other stuff. So to have part of the game be the game's intro before you even get to the intro screen that references that you are playing the Stanley Parable meta even itself, as I said, you are playing the Stanley Parable. They could just say the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, but they say you are playing because the game is self-referential, it's self-aware, and it knows that you're playing a game, and it makes no apologies. In fact, the design is based on the idea that you are playing a game, and it wants to make sure that it references that. This is going to be an interesting series. I'm really excited to play through this. I love games that are clever, games that have good narration, not necessarily narration, but good storylines. And this game is clever. It has good storylines. It's self-referential. Like, it kind of makes fun of itself. I don't know. I'm not sure how many endings we got, but we're going to play through quite a while. Maybe, I don't know how many videos we'll do, but I'm going to play through until I get tired of it, because this is fun. I mean, I have a little bit of a tolerance for that kind of stuff. I like to eke out all the additional endings and stuff, because I just stood there in that broom closet. You already saw. I can stand there in that broom closet for a while if it means I can squeeze some extra dialogue out of the game. So this is the kind of game that's made for a person like me. I'm the person that checks every nook and cranny. Back in the day when we were playing Halo, I looked for all the skulls. When I was playing Gears of War, I looked for all the COG tags. When I played Call of Duty, I was looking for all the laptops. Right? I liked looking for that kind of stuff. I'm the person that tries to find all the information before, I remember playing Zelda as a little kid and playing the original Zelda game and figuring out my way through the Lost Woods on accident. On accident. Right? That tells you that I had, like, the amount of permutations and combinations to decide that, right? Because you go into the Lost Woods and you go right, east, west, north, or south. Anyway, that's a little of a dated reference. If you don't know what the Lost Woods are, the algorithm to get to the Lost Woods, look that up. That'll take some of you that have played old games, will know what I'm talking about. Some of you that have no idea what that is, dust off a reference to an old game that has not been given love in years and years and years. The Lost Woods, algorithm, man. I love games like this that make you, make the choices and you have to go through and kind of figure out what you're going to do. And, you kind of anyway, that's it for today's video. and I'm gonna start another one of these. I do have another game series, like I said before, if you're interested in watching games and playthroughs. I have another series I talked about in my Bolletro video. I said I was gonna play another game called the Mortuary Assistant. So what I'll probably do is kind of like weave through and play a few different games and kind of like upload them in whatever order. I already recorded another Bolletro video, I just haven't uploaded it yet, so I don't want to constantly spend time talking about how the stuff it's actually very thematic, right, to talk about what I'm doing for the channel behind the scenes in a game like Stanley Parable, which is talking about the behind the scenes of the game and all that other stuff. Anyway, this has been such a fun game. If you enjoyed yourself and you like watching this content, please give us a like, thumbs up, make a comment. Helps out the algorithm, gives me like motivation to continue playing too. It also, or on video, tells me that you actually like the content, because if I don't see that, I don't know. It's actually really funny. A video I made a few days ago made like 300 some odd views. It was wild, more than anything I'd ever seen. And then I make a video right after it, which I guess was a little bit delayed. And then it only got like 10 views so far. So sometimes, the algorithm taketh and it giveth, it giveth and it taketh away is how you say that phrase. Sometimes you get caught by the algorithm and blessed by it, sometimes you don't. So who the heck knows? I don't even know how all that works. But what I do know is that I'm not really concerned with the views so much as I'm concerned with enjoying the games. And I feel like if you enjoy the games, viewership will come, and even if the viewership doesn't come, I don't care. This is more of a project for me, this whole channel, just to try something different, and I've been enjoying it so far, so we're going to keep it on. So, again, if you like the videos, like, subscribe, tell your friends, whatever, share this with somebody. Sharing it with somebody is probably the best thing you can do if you're enjoying stuff. And make any comments if, there's anything in this playthrough, if there was anything that you wanted me to try that I didn't try. I'm going to go through all the hallways, and I'm going to do a lot of things, but if there's anything that you saw me not do that you think I should have done, maybe make a comment on that. Maybe we'll see if I'll remember to, I'll try to read those and try to remember to do those things. That'll help me. If you want me to try a certain door or go a certain direction or do something I didn't even think about doing, I don't know. Maybe your ideas might spur a different ending. I don't know. But that's going to do it for tonight. So thanks again for watching. I'm the Blue Titan, and until next time, click the button. Sit at the desk. Do the thing. Goodbye.